From the first ray of dawn that kissed the rooftop to the last sigh of twilight, the rhythm of life played out its routine. But within the chords of this everyday melody, there were dissonances that spoke of a fractured heart. This story is one of betrayal, loss, and the resilience of the human spirit. It's about rising from the ashes of a broken marriage and finding strength in the bond with a child. At the heart of this narrative stands David Miller, a man whose life was an open book. His chapters were filled with honest sweat, loyal dedication, and unconditional love. His wife, Emily, was the ink that colored those pages, but her shade seemed to fade with time. As for their son, Michael, he was the full stop at the end of every sentence, a declaration of joy and purpose. In the tapestry of their lives, there was also a supporting character, Ryan Carter, a personification of luxury, temptation, and deceit. He was the discord in the composition, the harsh note that jarred the harmony of the Miller family. And so we find ourselves at the climax of this story, the point where David, bruised and battered by Emily's betrayal, stood at a fork in the road. The path on the left led to bitter resentment, to endless nights filled with self-pity and regret. On the right, there was the faint glimmer of hope, the possibility of a new beginning. Choosing the latter wasn't easy, especially when the memories of the past threatened to drown him. The Miller family home, once filled with love and laughter, now echoed with ghosts of the past. Each room held a memory that mocked David's pain. The kitchen where he and Emily had planned their future, the bedroom where promises had been whispered, the garden where he had hoped to grow old with her. All of it was a painful reminder of what he had lost. But amid the ruins of his shattered dreams, David found solace in Michael. In his son's innocent eyes, he saw a reflection of the man he once was, hopeful, resilient, and full of dreams. Michael became his anchor, his reason to rise above the pain, to pick up the pieces of his broken heart and move forward. As months turned into years, David transformed his grief into action. He threw himself into his work, pouring every ounce of his energy into his garage. His dedication didn't go unnoticed. His customers saw his honesty, his skill, his ability to fix not just their cars, but their spirits too. Slowly but surely, his reputation grew, leading to bigger projects, better pay and recognition as a top mechanic in town. But success wasn't just measured in money or fame. For David, it was also about personal growth. He began taking night classes to sharpen his skills, to learn more about the inner workings of the machines he loved. His garage, once a place of sorrow, became a sanctuary of hope, a place where he could breathe, create, and provide for his son. Meanwhile, Emily's life took a different turn. Ryan, with his charm and status, swept her off her feet, whisking her away to a world of luxury and deception. Their whirlwind romance blinded her to the cracks in Ryan's facade. She found herself in a gilded cage, surrounded by material comforts, but starved for emotional connection. Their opulent house echoed with emptiness. Emily's laughter was a hollow sound in the vast rooms. Even Ryan's grand gestures couldn't fill the void within her. The vibrant colors of her dreams turned to the dull gray of reality. The passion that had consumed her cooled, leaving behind a residue of discontent. As the years rolled on, Emily's facade began to crumble. Her forced smiles, her hollow eyes, and her frequent trips back to the old house told a tale of a heart that yearned for what it had lost. She found herself trapped in a life of pretense, pretending to be happy, pretending to be fulfilled, all the while drowning in the depths of her own despair. Yet amidst this somber tale, there was a glimmer of redemption. Michael, oblivious to his parents' failed marriage, thrived. He excelled in school, displaying a maturity that belied his years. He understood his father's sacrifices, the long hours, the calloused hands, the tired eyes. He knew that behind the grease and grime was a heart of gold. When David and Michael would work on cars together, Michael wouldn't just observe. He'd ask questions, trying to understand the intricacies of each machine, showing an aptitude that surprised even his father. It was as if Michael had inherited his parents' best qualities, David's diligence and Emily's insatiable curiosity. On the other side of town, in a mansion that screamed affluence but whispered loneliness, Emily's world was falling apart. The cracks in Ryan's character were becoming chasms, his charm wearing off to reveal a manipulative, uncaring man beneath. As the years passed, the glitter of their extravagant life lost its appeal. Emily found herself questioning her choices, wondering if the pursuit of a lavish lifestyle had been worth sacrificing her happiness. The grand parties, the designer clothes, and the expensive gifts couldn't mask the hollowness within her. She began to despise the very opulence that she had once craved. The plush carpets felt like a shroud, the chandeliers cast shadows of her solitude, and the gilded mirrors reflected a stranger, a woman devoid of joy, trapped in a gilded cage of her own making. But even in the darkest depths of her despair, Emily couldn't help but wonder about David. Was he happy? Had he moved on? These thoughts tormented her, a constant reminder of the life she had left behind. Meanwhile, David's life was a study in contrasts. His days were filled with the satisfaction of a job well done, the camaraderie of his customers, and the pride of being a single father. His nights were spent telling Michael bedtime stories, instilling in him values of honesty, kindness, and courage. Though their house was modest, their meals were simple, and their clothes weren't the latest fashion, there was always enough. There was always love. And that was more than Emily could say for herself. As fate would have it, their paths crossed one day in the town center. Emily, attempting to buy some normalcy with a trip to the grocery store, found herself face to face with David and Michael. Time seemed to stop. The bustling crowd faded away, leaving only three figures frozen in a tableau of the past. Michael, ever the innocent, broke the silence. "Dad, is that you?" he asked, his eyes shining with surprise. A choked laugh escaped David's lips. "Hey, champ," he said, kneeling down to his son's level. For a moment, Michael looked from his father to Emily, his brow furrowed in confusion. Then he turned back to David. "Why does she look sad?" he asked, pointing to Emily. David's heart clenched at his son's question. He didn't have an answer, not one that a 7-year-old could comprehend. Looking at Michael, he saw the embodiment of hope, a beacon in the darkness of his despair. In that instant, he realized he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for his son, for their future, for the memory of the love they once shared. He straightened up and faced Emily, his eyes filled with a mix of pain and determination. "It's over, Emily," he said, his voice echoing with finality. "I won't beg for your love. I won't plead for a second chance. We are done." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of their history, the depth of their feelings. Emily's eyes widened in shock, then filled with tears, but she blinked them away, determined to hold it together. "I'm sorry, David," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I know I hurt you, but I had to do what was best for me." "Best for you," David scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "You traded our life, our love, our family for luxury and greed. How is that best for anyone?" He turned to leave, but Emily stopped him. "David," she called out, her voice desperate. "Can't we talk about this?" He paused, his shoulders slumped with weariness. "There is nothing left to talk about, Emily. You made your choices. Now live with them." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily and Ryan standing there, the image of a broken family frozen in time. As David and Michael walked away, hand in hand, the setting sun casting long shadows around them, they didn't realize that they were leaving not just a failed marriage behind, but also a life of deceit, luxury, and ultimately, profound sadness. They were moving forward, not to a place of great fortune, but to a place of quiet dignity, of simple joys and genuine love. The kind of love that money and status couldn't buy or destroy. As darkness began to creep over the cityscape, Emily sank into the depths of her luxurious bath, the expensive scented candles she had chosen casting weak shadows that danced on the bathroom tiles. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror, pale and lost in the steamy haze, a stark contrast to the rich fabric bathrobe wrapped around her. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Ryan. "Having fun," he texted, and a wave of guilt washed over her. She had left David with the pretense of working late, of deadlines that stretched over evenings, and in this bubble of expensive soap and dim candlelight, she was keenly aware of how far she had strayed. But the guilt was a fleeting visitor. Before she could dwell on it, her mind drifted to David. In a small, modest house miles away, David was fixing a leaky pipe under the kitchen sink. His movements were precise, efficient, born from years of experience. He wasn't the kind of man who could sit still, who could bear the weight of too much silence or too much solitude. So he spoke to the dripping faucet, to the old pipes as if they were old friends. "Just a little leak, huh? We can fix that, can't we?" he muttered. His voice raspy with fatigue and tinged with a loneliness that had nothing to do with the physical distance. He thought of Emily. His Emily. The woman he had loved since they were teenagers. The woman he had married. Because her laugh matched his, and because her hand fit perfectly in his. How had he failed? Where had he gone wrong? These questions clawed at him, turning the wrench in his hand into a tormentor, twisting him, bruising him. A sob broke through the silence, pulling him from his thoughts. He rushed to the back door, his heart leaping with dread. There stood Michael, his son, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Daddy, Mommy isn't back. When does she come home?" David knelt before him, forcing a smile. "Soon, champ, soon." Meanwhile, Ryan was waiting in a plush restaurant, his gaze sweeping across the room, impatient. A bottle of expensive wine rested unopened on the table, the red cloth a dark stain against the pristine white tablecloth. Finally, Emily arrived, her entrance announced by a rush of cool air from the open door. Ryan stood, his smile predatory. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming," he said, his voice a silky lie. Their conversation was a mixture of polite inquiries about Emily's evening and thinly veiled digs at David. "So your husband keeps you busy with his little projects, I presume," Ryan said, his eyes glinting. "You should really let him take a break, give him a night off. After all, a man needs his freedom to roam, doesn't he?" Emily laughed, a harsh sound, but it died quickly in her throat. Ryan reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Come here, Emily," he whispered, and she shivered. Was this right? Was this what she wanted? Was this what she deserved? She had spent so many nights lying awake, picturing a different life, one that didn't smell of motor oil and regret, one that didn't echo with the ghosts of unmet dreams. At home, David tucked Michael into bed. The boy's eyelids were droopy, his breathing slow and even. David leaned down, kissing his forehead. "Sweet dreams, champ. Daddy loves you." Back at the restaurant, Ryan was speaking, his voice a seductive purr. "Imagine, Emily, a life without obligations, without that little house, without the car that barely runs. A life where you are the only priority, where you are cherished." Emily looked away. Ryan continued, oblivious to her struggle. "Your husband is holding you back, Emily. He doesn't understand you. He never will. I do. I can give you the life you deserve, the excitement, the luxury." And then he leaned in close, his breath warm on her ear. "Don't you think you deserve it, Emily? Don't you think you're worth it?" As Ryan spoke, weaving his web of temptation, the windows of the restaurant were like mirrors reflecting the distorted image of Emily's soul. Outside, the city lights twinkled, mocking her with their cold, distant glitter. Inside, the candle flames flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, mirroring the monstrous decisions brewing in her heart. Suddenly, the restaurant door burst open and a figure stood silhouetted in the frame. It was David. His eyes, red-rimmed and raw, scanned the room, finally landing on Emily. For a moment, their gazes locked, and in that instant, Emily saw not the image of a defeated husband, but the ghost of the man she had loved. "David," she whispered, her voice cracking. Ryan rose, his face hardening. "What are you doing here, David? Come to beg for forgiveness, perhaps?" He turned to Emily, his voice dripping with malice. "Seems your husband is still in love with you, begging for a second chance." Emily shrank in her seat, her skin crawling at the venomous words. David, ignoring Ryan, approached Emily, his voice hoarse. "Emily, we need to talk. We need to sort this out." Ryan laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Sort what out? That you can't stand being touched by your husband? That you find him repulsive?" David recoiled as if struck, his hands clenching into fists. "Stop it, Ryan!" Emily snapped, the venom in her voice echoing her turmoil. This was her choice, her mess, and she would damn well sort it out on her own terms. Ignoring David, she returned to her meal, picking at the salad on her plate, as if it held the answers to her turmoil. David, wounded and bewildered, watched them both, his gaze flicking between Emily and Ryan, trying to decipher the shifting alliances, the veiled barbs, the simmering resentment. He felt as though he were in quicksand, unable to move, unable to speak. As the night deepened, so did the tension. Every word hung heavy in the air, every glance a loaded weapon. Finally, David spoke, his voice breaking the stalemate. "Emily, we have to try. For Michael, for our marriage. We can't let it end like this." Emily looked up, her eyes hollow, her voice flat. "It's too late, David. You don't understand. I want this life. I want Ryan." David's face crumpled, the hurt etched deeply into his features. "Oh God," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. He rose, his chair scraping against the floor, and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled, indifferent to the unfolding drama within. As he stood there, the restaurant blurred around him, the voices fading into a dull roar. All he could see were the twinkling lights, each one representing a world he could never be a part of, a world where Emily belonged. Turning from the window, he met Ryan's gaze. There was no animosity in his eyes, only pity. "Take care of her, Ryan," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I won't bother you again." With that, he walked away, leaving behind the scent of motor oil and the ghost of a broken heart. When David got home, Michael was already asleep. The house was silent, the darkness heavy. He walked to the window and looked out at the starless sky. What tomorrow would bring, he didn't know. But as he stood there, he made a silent vow. He would rebuild, not for Emily, but for Michael, for the memory of their love, and for himself. He owed it to himself to prove that even in the absence of Emily's love, he could thrive, that he could build a life that was richer, deeper, truer than the one Emily had forsaken. He had to show Michael that even when love fades, life goes on, and that a man's true worth is measured not by his wife's affection, but by the strength of his character and the depth of his love for his son. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with gold and crimson, David sat in his study, the scent of old books and fresh coffee filling the air. Outside, the city hummed with life, but within these four walls, David found solace, his sanctuary from the world's judgmental eyes. A knock on the door made him look up. Emily stood there, her silhouette framed by the setting sun, her eyes reflecting the hues of the twilight sky. "David," she began, her voice soft yet firm. "We need to talk." He watched her enter, her steps purposeful, her shoulders straight, a reflection of the woman she once was, the woman he had loved then and loved now. He set aside the file he had been reviewing, a faint smile touching his lips. "What's on your mind, Emily?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken emotions. This was their ritual now, these quiet conversations that had replaced the stormy silences of the past. "I haven't been honest with you," she confessed, her gaze dropping to the intricate patterns on the carpet, David's eyebrows furrowed. Honesty was the cornerstone of their new relationship, a bond forged in the fires of adversity. Emily looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "There are parts of my past, choices I made, relationships I've kept hidden because I feared your reaction. But I can't live like this anymore, David. I have to set things right, not just for us, but for Michael." His heart ached for her, knowing that beneath her composed exterior, she was still wrestling with the demons of her past. "Tell me, Emily. I may be angry, hurt even, but I will not judge you. We'll face it together." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. And in that moment, the walls around her heart crumbled, releasing the torrent of emotions she had held back for so long. She told him about her past relationships, her affair with Ryan, her hidden fears and the secrets that had become her burden to bear alone. As she spoke, David listened, his gaze unwavering, his presence a silent promise of support. When she finished, a heavy silence descended upon them, broken only by Emily's soft sobs. David rose from his chair and walked toward her, his steps measured, his emotions under control. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "Emily," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "no matter what, I am here with you. We'll face it together." In that embrace, amidst the lingering scent of old books and fresh coffee, they found solace in each other's arms, two souls wounded yet resilient, ready to confront the past together, to heal, to forgive, and to love again. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with golden hues, David and Michael sat on the porch swing, sharing a comfortable silence. It had been 2 years since Emily's return. 2 years of rebuilding trust. 2 years of healing old wounds. In that time, David had rebuilt his company, not just to the glory it once had, but to a stature that commanded even more respect. He had become known not only for his business acumen, but also for the integrity that had been his bedrock, a quality that shone through in the way he treated his employees, his clients, and especially his family. Michael, too, had flourished. The trauma of his parents' separation had left a scar, but with each passing day, with every shared meal, every bedtime story, that scar faded a little. Michael, innocent yet wise beyond his years, thrived in this new life. His laughter filled every corner of their mansion. His joy was their joy, a constant reminder that love was not measured in cars or houses, but in the moments when his parents stood by his side together, cheering at his basketball games, helping with his school projects, walking him to school hand in hand, as though the world outside no longer mattered. Healing was not just about the present. It was about facing the ghosts of the past one final time. And though Ryan's threats had haunted Emily's dreams, the truth was that his voice had lost its power. For no matter how sharp his words had been, he was locked away, while David and Emily had chosen to rise above him. The past that once bound them to pain now became the very fuel that strengthened their bond. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with golden hues, David and Michael sat on the porch swing, sharing a comfortable silence. It had been 2 years since Emily's return. 2 years of rebuilding trust. 2 years of healing old wounds. In that time, David had rebuilt his company, not just to the glory it once had, but to a stature that commanded even more respect. He had become known not only for his business acumen, but also for the integrity that had been his bedrock, a quality that shone through in the way he treated his employees, his clients, and especially his family. Michael, too, had flourished. The trauma of his parents' separation had left a scar, but with each passing day, with every shared meal, every bedtime story, that scar faded a little. Michael, innocent yet wise beyond his years, thrived in this new life. His laughter filled every corner of their mansion. His joy was their joy, a constant reminder that love was not measured in cars or houses, but in the moments when his parents stood by his side together, cheering at his basketball games, helping with his school projects, walking him to school hand in hand, as though the world outside no longer mattered. Healing was not just about the present. It was about facing the ghosts of the past one final time. And though Ryan's threats had haunted Emily's dreams, the truth was that his voice had lost its power. For no matter how sharp his words had been, he was locked away, while David and Emily had chosen to rise above him. The past that once bound them to pain now became the very fuel that strengthened their bond. And so, as the camera pulls away one last time, the mansion glows in the warm embrace of twilight. Emily and David sitting on the porch watching Michael dribble his basketball across the garden, their hands intertwined, not with the desperation of the past, but with the peace of the present. Their smiles, quiet yet radiant, as if the world itself had conspired to give them back the happiness they thought they had lost forever. Over this final image, the narrator's voice rises, steady and full of hope. Life tests us in ways we cannot imagine. Betrayal shatters, pride blinds, ambition tempts, but love, true love, has the power to endure it all. For in the ruins of broken promises, forgiveness built a home, and in the arms of resilience, a family found its way back to love. The Miller's story is not one of perfection, but of redemption. And in that lies its greatest beauty. And as the screen fades to black, the final words appear in white letters, soft music swelling in the background. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional dramas.